Yep. Uh-huh. Yep. Phone book. Yep. Phone book. Book. Phone book. Yep. Phone book. Book. Phone book. Yep. Phone book. That's got to be the dumbest of my dumb impros ever. Hello, everybody. Okie dokie. Camera covered. Oh, someone's here for the first time. Boom, boom, psh, boom, boom, psh. You can only see those fingers snapping. Boom, boom, psh, boom, boom, psh. Yeah, phone book. Yep. Greetings, program. Sold Ingrid Bernal here. Hankard Fernale. Welcome back to Runehammer. This is Drunkards and Dragons. All this splendor you see around you, this vast domain, is where the magic happens, right here at Runehammer. We're back. It's Friday afternoon. Got like 17 cups of coffee in this body. Sunshine is out. Dog is tearing up his duck toy. So all is well in Runehammer area. Welcome back to the program, everybody. This is a program where we discuss the hobby known as the D&Ds. Now, D&D is only one of many tabletop role-playing games available for your enjoyment, but it's so it's become so quintessential. It's just shorthand for tabletop as a lifestyle, as a way of being. All right, hi everybody. I like Alligator Loki, and my name is Hanker Infernal. Welcome back. We are here to talk about phone book. No, that's not real. That's just the intro. We're here to talk about recapping the first game of my new campaign. Now, you're going to be hearing about this for a while, right? Because this little sucker's going to be going. So we're probably going to be running this game until sometimes around Thanksgiving or so, till fall, the autumn, the time of the brown leaves. And so that's what is it for? That's like 6 months. About 6 months you're going to be hearing about this. That's the length of the campaign that I hope to be running. Now, something interesting about this campaign is that it is being used specifically to simultaneously play and sort of slightly create or perfect my newest release, which is coming in the fall, called Hardsuit. So Hardsuit is sort of the first real sort of large-scale standalone world for index card RPG. Now, real quick before we get into everything, I know that some folks have been looking for a cost-effective or more available way to get their hands on either Viking Death Squad or Index Card RPG. Jump over to my publisher page on Drive-Thru RPG right now. I just released very simple paperback editions of both books. So these are not fancy. They're paperbacks. They're on black and white paper. They're very simple books, but I slashed the price as low as I could possibly go. I even cut $2 off the price of Viking Death Squad to get that paperback price down as low as I can go. So if you're buying like copies for players, or if you're just experimenting when you don't know if you're really into this, you don't have to make such a big jump into the sort of the high-end paper hardbacks, which have been also hard to get. They've been sold out like all the time. So jump over there and check out those paperbacks, and they might be the right solution for you. And I just made them crazy cheap. So I just want people to enjoy the creations. That's me. Maybe that's why I'll probably never be wealthy. I'm a friend guy. I'm about the friends. And then I'm like, whoa, bills. Anyway, okay. So welcome. This is the session 1 recap of Hardsuit ICRPG. Let's get into it. So as you guys know, session 0 happened without me with these players. We finally assembled Wednesday night. One of my players is hosting now, so that's kind of awesome. I do have to be a mobile game master, so that comes with its own set of challenges. So you can see right back here. This is almost my entire mobile kit right here. It's I'm using a Pathfinder Pawns box, and I've got my dice and my speaker charger, and my essentials deck of index cards. And then everything, the contents of the box, which is lots of miniatures and other doodads. And that's a lot of my stuff. So we gather on Wednesday night and had to make some ground rules, not really even rules, but sort of laws of the table, if you will. And so I'm going to run through what I filled these players in. So we have 3 veterans. No, we have 4 veterans at this table and 1 person who's never played any role-playing game of any kind, but has heard about it and became sort of familiar with these worlds through the novels by R.A. Salvatore. So pretty interesting. We have a far more like experienced group this time. But nevertheless, every table, I am a huge believer that in all social gatherings, especially a new group like this, it's critical, one, that everybody knows like each other's name and knows each other well. And now that may seem really obvious and fundamental, but it's absolutely fundamental. Now, luckily, this is a group of friends, so we have that. And then 2, all social gatherings need a sense of what are the ground rules here? What is the structure? What will we and won't we do? And it gives everybody comfort. So have you ever heard this term that like a pack of dogs without an alpha, they're all nervous and anxious and they're all nippy and scratchy, right? It's not so much that I would consider the game master to be the alpha, but I do think that in social gatherings, rules laid out and like the fundamental ideas of what are going to bind us together, openly stated, makes everyone more comfortable and just sort of relax their shoulders a little bit. Now, this may just be like a sort of psychological phenomenon or a sociological phenomenon, but I really think that a lot of game masters underestimate the power and value of doing this exercise. And so here's what I did. I said, hey, everybody, okay, we got our drinks, we got our snacks, we got our sort of stuff at the table. Everybody's kind of ready to rock. I'm going to put some stuff out there, and these things will be sacred throughout this game. So the first thing is an open world. And this is the most important thing to portray, I think, besides just being nice to each other, about a game at the beginning. This is truly an open environment. Do not take anything that I say or anything that I present as some kind of meta cue that you quote unquote should go do that. So a classic example of this is if you play with miniatures and terrain. If players see like a certain piece of terrain come out or an elaborate miniature, there is a little bit of an implied statement there that like this is the content you should play because I put a bunch of work into making this, right? But I wanted to put it right out. The very first statement, this is a truly open game. So no matter what you see or hear, you always have the freedom to engage or disengage with anything that is brought to this table, as long as it's agreed upon and part of the role play and part of the narrative and so on and so forth. And this cannot be overstated in my mind. You are truly free here. If you see something that I present and you as a group or even a few of you are like, no, oh, what? No, actually, we were at the bar last night together and we're thinking we're going to like completely go left on this, take this wagon, get some explosives and come back and just no, whatever. The true freedom has to be reinforced again and again. You are truly free. Why? Is it because sandbox play is so cool? Is it because hex crawling is so cool or what? No. To me, the reason that it's so critical that true open, player agency is reinforced is because it's the soil in which the role play grows. It really is. If there is true freedom, their actions and their consequences are theirs to own. They don't get to sort of offload or export their role play to my decisions, to my presentation, right? Well, I came up with all these snow monsters, so you guys are definitely heading north. And then they're like, okay, well, the consequences of going into the north, I guess I kind of have to offshore those to the game master. He's the one who made us go up there. I guess we're going up there. I mean, it'll still be cool, but I really want consequences and the role play that comes from consequences to be completely owned and possessed and felt by players, because that really is why we're playing. That is the suchness. That's the good stuff. And to me, it only is really fertile and really grows if those choices are real and true. Now, every minute of the game, they don't get to quote unquote derail whatever is going on, right? This is not an invitation to be completely chaotic. We still need believability. We need narrative. But it was the first thing I announced to this new group. This is a truly open world. You can be truly anyone that you think fits your character and take the actions that fit the motivations of those characters. And you don't know those things yet. And this is the second thing that I needed to get to. Okay, so that was number one. Number two is there's no character sheets, and we did not create characters, as I've already mentioned to you guys on our text thread. You're probably sitting there going, okay, so how are we going to do this session if I have no character created? And this is a big part of Hardsuit. Not just this game that we're playing, but Hardsuit itself. It employs discovery character creation. So you do not look at the book, learn a little bit about it, consider some options, and create a character. You come in completely clueless, and through your choices and your sort of thematic response to what happens, you become a character. These guys don't even know how they look, and we'll get to all that. So if you feel a little bit like there's no floor in the room right now, that's okay. We're going to be creating characters as we play. The first two sessions especially will have a lot of like finding who you are, even your stats, even your abilities, everything. You're going to sort of discover it. Imagine looking down at a body that you now sort of occupy that is unfamiliar to you. That's what we're describing. Another big one was basically covering the kinds of things that I do as a game master. I wanted to give everyone a bit of a heads up of like what we do at our table. So I introduced fundamentals like timers, like the hero coin, playing in clockwise turn order, and players rearranging themselves at the table at the beginning of the session to make better use of playing clockwise. Feel free to be meta about that. Describing how sometimes I'll be caught flat-footed and that we're going to be creating uncharted territory together. And don't see that as flim-flam, but see that as a moment that we know we are truly sort of charting this together. And sometimes I'll even call a break so that I can get a sense of some footing for where we're headed. And then I introduced to them the yes-no roll, which we've slightly modified now. We're using a D6 to flip a coin if a yes-no question is asked that I don't know the answer to. We've flipped it just a little bit. So now 1, 2, 3 is an absolute no, and 4, 5, 6 is absolute yes. We used to sort of slightly tune that a little bit. And then 1 is the worst kind of no, and 6 is the most maximal form of yes. And so if yes-no questions are asked, they're rolled for. And a lot of times these are the highest stakes rolls in the game. And this is something I told them. I said a lot of time, rolling D6 to answer a yes-no question is going to be the most dangerous roll or most impactful role of the session. So don't feel like that's being sprung on you. That is a fundamental technique that we use at the table. And 2 of my players are from my OSE game, which a lot of you followed here on YouTube. And so they're over there nodding. Oh yeah, watch out for that yes, no shit. Oh yeah, it's crazy. But when it goes in your favor, it can be big too. And I think those are the fundamentals. Also, we had a great thing happen, which is one of my players got really cool like leather bound, like with little gems on them, like notebooks from Fan Expo the previous weekend. So everybody has a really wicked, cool little notebook, not character sheets. And so they're all kind of looking at, that brand new, this notebook was probably like $50, so right away I just said, everybody just write your name and a smiley face and the date on that first page. Just get past it. You're going to make a mess out of this notebook. That's what it's for. You're not going to do all these perfect little drawings in here. And just, it's going to be a notebook. You're probably going to, draw your character or write your character stuff again and again. Just embrace that it's going to be crazy. Get that pen out. Let's go. And then finally, the last announcement I made to them was, this is ICRPG. So I wouldn't call it a word of warning, but let's get it out in the open. This game does not progress like a lot of RPGs out there, especially newer versions of D&D. There's no guaranteed hit point advancement. There's no guaranteed stat advancement. There's nothing. You're going to get loot here and there, and you'll even get some abilities that kind of permanently give you some more options here and there. But you will probably begin and end this campaign with 10 hit points. 90% of characters in ICRPG begin and end their career with 10 hit points. That is the math scale that we live on. Then really quickly, I introduce them to basic tool, gun, magic, and ultimate effort. So, and which is also commonly called damage. Those dice categories, we're going to be rocking those things over and over and over throughout play, and you're just going to get so used to them. And you will find it very easy to know how much damage or effort a thing is going to do. You're going to find yourself sailing in this system. So I brought them into all those pieces, and we were ready. Everybody, okay, we got full understanding. Everybody has their dice. We even had one player get another dice set. They're these hilarious, oversized pink ones, and he's our heavy metal guy. So he has these like nerfy pink dice, and he just started loving them. It's like My Little Pony style dice. So funny. Anyway, so it's time to begin. So we begin Hardsuit. Now, the way that I've written Hardsuit, I've kind of suggested that the opening that I've written is how all first-time games in Hardsuit should be played. A lot of feedback has been telling me that that's a good thing, not to leave a world so open-ended that I say to do whatever you want here, but to actually write an opener. And in this unique case, I think it works really well because this is an unusual beginning to a campaign. So the campaign begins. The 5 players awaken from suspended animation in these weird blue glowing pods. They're kind of coming out of the pods, coughing, and their joints ache. It's been an unknown number of years. They basically just have like their little sleepy briefs on. And we have 4 men and 1 woman in this group. And they're coming out of these pods, and they're confused. And the first thing they see is the interior of an old wooden sailing ship, like the hold, right? The lower floor of an old, creaky, waterlogged sailing ship with these wooden crates here and there and some beer barrels, and there are ropes sagging from the ceiling and these huge timbers, and there's seawater dripping. You can hear wind blowing outside and rain pummeling the side of the ship, and then a wave hits the side, and then another one, and you realize these aren't just waves. This is a storm. This ship is in a storm. They are awaking from these pods. What are you going to do? That's it. That's all you get. You don't know who you are, what you can do, what you can't do, how you got here, or even where you are or why. This is all you know. So we start to my left. We're going to go around the table, and then I'm going to take my first turn. So, of course, the players start stumbling out of their pods. They try to sort of walk out into the hold of the ship, and this thing is thrashing side to side. So there's some stumbling going on. We're making some dex rolls. And the way that discovery play works is that, especially this first turn is critical, because what is the first instinct that a player has? Now, 2 of them were to basically dash or to sort of run forward and look around. So right away I said, take +1 on your dex stat. Oh, okay. Like permanently? Yes. When you're in situations and you don't know what to do, you tend to use your feet. You're quick. Right at that moment, I see light bulbs going on around the table. What I do sort of creates my character. Well, so we have 2 dex sort of characters right away sort of get out into there. They're going side to side, and they're looking at each other like, who are you? Who are we? And one of them's like holding on to this big pillar. And they're looking around, they're scanning, but not really looking much. They're sort of just almost blindly running. Then we come to our 3rd player, and he is quite different, honestly. He just basically does this. He wants to just go into a calm state. Super cool and very different. So he goes more into a wisdom type state. Then 4th player comes in, and he does what every group needs. He says, before I'm even leaving this pod, before I'm taking a single step, I'm going to look around. Are there portholes? Are there other chambers here? Is there a door? Is there a ladder? All right, let's get that perception roll. Then he makes it with flying colors. Take a +2 on that stat. Oh, wow. So I'm kind of like a scout type guy. Yes. He finds a ladder going up to a hatch. They hear a scream up on the deck as another blast of waves comes across the deck, and he notices a huge dark opening in the back of the hold. There's something back there with a giant door leading to it. Then my last player takes that cue. He goes and basically tries to sort of like slide like you would slide on an icy driveway on this wet decking back into this big opening, and also going for decks. And so right away, there's some interesting stuff here. There's a brace that occurs, which I kind of forgot, leads into strength. Now, I'm not going to do this every round. It's just that first round. So, and in the hard suit book, it advises how to sort of start to dole out stat bonuses when players do things in the first 2 or 3 sessions. And it's kind of going to be a call, right? You're going to have to make a call as a game master. And it's something you're going to want to negotiate at the table. No hard rule is going to fully capture this discovery method of creating characters. Okay, so now I don't need to tell you every turn, but I wanted to tell you that introduction. So over the course of the next few turns, on my first turn, I roll a D4 timer. In this many rounds, the ship will be smashed to pieces on the rocks in this storm. And I just tell everybody, fuck it, why keep secrets? I basically explain it by saying one wave hits the side of the ship so hard that boards like split inward, and 2 like big leaks, like, water spouts break. And they realize like, this isn't just a storm. This ship's going to break up. And it's in 3 rounds. I roll a 3. This is the timer to get the hell out of here or do something. All right. So in the course of the next 3 turns, some of the players go back into this backspace, and of course, you guessed it, they find basically a sort of a type of primitive hangar, a large interior space where 5 of these giant, strange-looking suits are sort of lashed to the decking. These humanoid, bulky suits, which range in height between 12 and 15 feet. So that's one investigation that's going on. The other is that they're going up this ladder and trying to get out of the hold onto the deck. And in the course of doing it, they start becoming their characters. It was amazing. So our female player, she has this jump jet she found in her locker. So they find these lockers that have names on them. And you're drawn to your own locker and you can read your name. This is how they find out what their name is. They see their reflection. One of them in a glass beer bell, another one in the shiny metal of the lockers. And that's how they start to decide what they might look like. So we have our big guy. He realizes he's big. He's tall. Like he goes up to this ladder and expects to climb it, but like can reach the top rung with one hand. Like he's big. He's like 6'7". So he's climbing up the ladder, opening the hatch, all this wind and blowing rain. And then Cypher, our female player, she has this little jump jet that she found in her locker. It's like this little portable microjet. And she uses it to make like a large leap up this ladder and land on the decking to find a disembodied hand tied to the helm. Apparently, the last person to be alive on the deck of this ship had their hand tied on the helm and has been ripped off. So only the hand is there. And she looks and she sees these huge jagged rocks sliding past the ship, and it's coming toward this big set of cliffs. And it's like, oh crap. So she starts setting up some rigging so that everybody can hold on. That's her concept. Hold on. So the big guy going up the ladder, and then our sort of monkish character who decides his name is Awake. At the beginning of every turn, he says, I am awake. And he basically just tries to gather his calm and apply calm to the situation. This is just his invention. Remember, this is a world I told them nothing about. I didn't tell them if it's fantasy. I didn't tell them if it's science fiction. I didn't tell them anything. They just become this stuff. And that is the magic of it. And it's also up to me to embrace it. So I'm thinking in the back of my head already, after like 4 or 5 of his turns of saying, I am awake. There is a group in this world. There has to be called the Awakened. He doesn't know it yet, but he's part of that group. And that this is brilliant. He's world building. So he's doing that. The big guy, Awake, and Cypher are all sort of getting ready to just brace on the deck, and then they remember there's two more of us, and they're down there. One of them has got the hard suit opened up and is getting inside it, realizing it can be piloted. And the other one, our sort of boy genius, is trying to do the same, but we're out of time. The rounds count up. The ship is smashed against the rocks. A large piece of debris forms from the decking that continues to ride the waves toward the cliffs. 3 of my characters are there. The other 2 are down in the hold. Then Warag, he decides, he remembers his name, the big guy. Instead of going up to safety, he dives straight up, Submariner style. Instead of going to safety, he could have been on the debris. No, he's worried about the other 2. Right away, and he says, "Get out of there!" Right as these waves are smashing in, and I realize this guy's got charisma. This is going to be their leader. So he dives in, holds his breath, gets a natural 20 on the con roll to hold his breath. So he's straight Submariner mode. He's going down. He's looking for these guys. He sees the one hard suit drifting backward as its lights are turning on, like, and it's like the fingers start to move as it's drifting back into the kelp. Another one of the hard suits, the boy genius, has just barely closed in time, and it purges the water out from itself, and it like turns on and goes like starts propellering in the water. Meantime, we've been using some tables to decide what the parts and frame properties are on these hard suits. My players have written those down. There's dice tables for all this stuff in the book. Warag comes down. He's trying to help. He realizes they're pretty safe, and then he remembers the lockers, and he sees the lockers like drifting like the credits from the TV show Vikings. They're drifting down into the water. He's got this ultimate con roll under his belt. So he swims. He goes down to his locker and jimmies it open, gets his stuff, which there are tables for that in the book too, puts the stuff under one arm, and then he's swimming over, and he says, "Can I spot the other hard suits as they're drifting toward the ground?" I'm like, "I don't know. You're in this crazy surf." Meanwhile, on the surface, this piece of debris is about to smash into the rocks, and they see a figure. There's a trail, zigzag cut in the cliffs going up, and there's a robed figure standing in the rain, waving at them. And then he unfurls a big climbing rope, throws it down, and beckons them forward to grab the rope as the debris is smashing into the cliffs. They're making rolls to do so. Meanwhile, back underwater, we have 2 active suits. They start to function, but they're very low on power. So they basically clunk down to the bottom of the sea, and they're making intelligence rolls just trying to figure out how to operate these damn things. These suits do not have computers. They don't have screens. They don't have electronics. They don't have windows. They have a see-through kind of surface when they power up, and they have sort of these organic controls. They're trying to figure out how to work these things while Warag, the swimmer, makes another critical roll on his ability through the salt water to spot one of the suits down on the sea floor, swims to it, manages to get in, and then we ask the first really big yes-no question of the session. Can a hard suit purge if it's completely filled with water? Yes. Yes, it can. So the water pushes out of the suit. He's making the same rolls to get control of it. We have 3 suits now. And as Warag gets his suit under control and helps the other 2, now we have 3 suits, and they're non-verbally communicating like divers, right? They're waving to each other, pointing to the surface. There's no radios in these things. As this happens, they're sort of together underwater in this big, this massive kelp that's going like this. And they look and they see the other 2 suits in the tide and in the waves smash and be completely obliterated in these waves. They have salvaged 3 of 5 hard suits. Up they go, up through the surface of the water, up the cliff. Meanwhile, Awake and Cypher have used the rope and met this stranger. He pulls back his hood and welcomes them, introduces himself as Mord, and says he has safety up at the top of the cliff. But when he pulls that hood back, he's strange. His face is sort of elongated. His eyes are a little bit oversized and a little bit too far apart, but human. They're just like, let's worry about that later. We got to get out of this damn storm. So they go up this zigzagging goat path up this cliff in this immense rainstorm. The suits, either by climbing or by leaping, use the last of their very limited power reserves. And again, there's a whole system in the hard suit book about using power reserves in suits to make rolls. Basically works a lot like a Call of Cthulhu D100 roll, but ever decreasing. The suits get up. We take a food break. Everybody grabs another beer. Actually, we were drinking mead. We have a shot of mezcal around the table. Okay, everybody ready for the second act, the second half of the session. So that first, and by the way, this first half of the session included getting gear, finding out your name, finding out what you look like, finding your genetic properties, finding out what properties the hard suits have, learning about the ship, learning about the cliffs. Finally, we go to this little cabin. Mord, this stranger, has a little cabin, and he tells them his plight. They have these suits sort of parked, so to speak, outside the cabin. This is important later. They come in to warm themselves by his fire. He also has a giant badger as a pet named Billy, which was something we decided with dice. But you know how players are with like pet animals. It's always a big deal. So there they are in the cabin with Mord, and Mord tells him his story. The reason he's always out on the cliffs is that he lost his wife in the waves, and it would be bad enough if she had just drowned, because this is the Tower Narrows. The currents in this part of the sea are terrible, and we lose many fishermen here. But it's worse than that, because I keep seeing her. She's out there in the waves. I see her calling to me. And at this moment, the players kind of look at each other like, oh, this guy's a little crazy. But he says, I know what you're thinking, that I'm mad, but it's not. I see the surf breaking against her as she stands in the waves. I've got to reach her somehow. And he's just like, like looking into the fire. Like he's mad with grief a little bit. So then an interesting thing happens with my group. The first 3 of 5 kind of act like they want something from this guy. They're kind of like, what's going on? Where are we? Like, what can we do? Like, how can we do this? And like, can we look at a map and stuff like this? But there's this sort of mounting unspoken thing going on, which is sort of part of role play, right? Because I'm role playing Mord. I keep seeing her out in the waves. Don't you hear me? You have to help. This is a terribly distraught person. And my 4th player, and this is Warag, the big dude, the reinforced, tall, sort of wide, heroic leader. Kind of almost like a Grog type character, but without all the sort of dumb comic relief. He doesn't ask about anything that the party might be interested in. He just says, hey, man, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. We're going to help you. We're going to find out what's going on here. And it was an awesome moment at the table. Now, this may sound so simple. Just like, what's the big deal? But to me, it's a huge deal, because this is role-playing. Role-playing isn't necessarily just like, okay, let's start doing the adventure things. I mean, that's role-playing too. But there's something really beautiful in just role-play that doesn't offer you really any benefit except that you are part of the moment. Hey, man, it's going to be okay. It's going to be all right. Look, we're people too. We've been through it. We don't even know who we are. And this sort of breaks my NPC in a wonderful way. My NPC comes out of his little dialogue loop, right? He's not telling just his monologue anymore. He looks Warag in the eye and he's like, you're right. I'm sorry. I got lost in that a little bit. Like, what is that you have there? And my players begin showing Mord their little personal possessions, which they don't really know what they are. And then we went through a very strange and very interesting sort of half hour at the table. What these little personal possessions are and what they mean. And we kind of use dice because I don't know the answers, but my players don't know the answers either. So we're out in complete free space as far as what this world is, what this adventure is going to be, what the story is, what the context is. It's all completely open. Now, through a series of statements and looking at little things and rolling yes/no questions, and I don't have to belabor you with every detail, it's revealed that my players are from the same village as Mord. This little village right here in the Tower Narrows, which is the western edge of this world we're in, called Atria. And he has a rudimentary map that he kind of keeps by his fireplace, that they're from here too, that they were lost almost a century ago. That people do know about these suits, but they haven't been seen for almost 20 years. And the last one that was seen was claimed by like a warlord. who wound up killed, and they burned the suit to ashes because these suits are forbidden in this land. And they start to like loosen him up. They start to talk with him in a natural way, not like, oh, look, a quest giver. You know what I mean? They start, saying, hey, man, it's going to be all right. It's going to be okay. We're going to stick together. And they kind of win him over, and they win me over. And he's like, our purposes, we can unite our purposes together. Like there are these creatures that are terrorizing our fishermen. They're ruining all the fishing. Our village is almost empty now because it's become unsustainable. And these crab creatures seem to be multiplying. And then I lost my Hilda in the waves, and it's just been so terrible. But maybe you coming isn't an omen of doom. Maybe this is the turning of the tide, so to speak. And he keeps saying, my fire is your fire. He wants to share what he has with this group, and they bond. It's great. While this is all happening, my player, whose name is Fehu, is what he's named himself. He's got like a sort of tattoo or brand of a rune on his throat. He kind of suddenly gets some spidey sense going. So he says, this is all great. I'm really glad we're getting to know each other. I'm going to go check on the suits. So he goes outside into the rain, and he takes these sheets and tarps that Mord has in his house, and he begins covering the suits, making them look like they're like piles of hay or something, right? Which is actually something that's shown in the book. There's a picture of a tarp over a hard suit. Because remember, these things are forbidden. You're not allowed to have technology in this world, even though it's still around here and there. He's out there covering the suits with these tarps, and sort of gets this strange sense that he like hears something. And of course, this is D&D, you guys. A small sort of pack of these crab creatures come crawling up over the lip of the cliff, which is near the cabin that Mord lives in. So he sees these little legs come up, and then like eye stalks popping up, and then a claw. And there's a group of these things. 2 of them are huge, and there are 4 small ones in the front. They're basically crabs. They're a creature that I have in my toolbox called cave crabs. They aren't just crabs, though. They're kind of worse, right? Because they're monsters. They're monsterized crabs. So these things are clearly like looking for human flesh. They're coming at the cabin. They've heard all the talking, maybe, or smelled the fireplace, right? And they're coming. Here they come. So Fehu is out there by himself, like, incoming, basically. And he has a moment, a kind of funny moment, which is absolutely going to define session 2. I honestly think he sort of panicked slightly at the sight of these crabs. And maybe it's because we're playing in a new system. Maybe he didn't know exactly what he was up against. Maybe he's just role playing. I don't know. But he instantly pulls off this tarp on the suit that's his, the one he's familiar with, jumps in the suit, slams it closed, and like, what are the weapon systems here? We roll for initiative, gets it, and he's just like, fuck it, I'm firing the missile box. So like this box on the shoulder of this thing, like in place of an arm, pops open. It has 4 little canister missiles, and they rolls great on everything he's doing, blasts the whole front phalanx of these crabs to crab meat. And these huge orange explosions billow up into the rainy night and light up these low clouds. Remember, we're out in a relatively, sort of wildernessy world. A huge orange explosion can be seen probably for 5, 6, 7 miles in every direction. And this huge. Now, granted, he destroys a bunch of these crab creatures in a single shot, but uses up some of his limited power reserves on the suit. Everyone in the cabin's like, oh shit, let's get out there. But these 2 big crabs remain. They run up. One of them jumps on Mord's wagon, which he probably uses, to make a living, smashes the damn wagon, and just through some good rolls, manages to tear the other arm off of Fehu's hard suit. Because these crabs are almost as big as a hard suit. Rips the arm off, and he's expended the missile box, so it's reloading. So he's kind of like on his heels. The other big one like looks to the front door of the cabin where Billy the Badger is going. So out come my players. They have limited weapons. All they have is the stuff they found in the ship. So they come out. One of them has this kind of rudimentary pistol thing. Cypher, our female player, she finds this sword over Mord's mantle and asks if she can use it. Turns out it's like his grandmother's sword. She grabs it and instantly articulates into segments, and it's a motherfucking whip sword, yo. How cool is that? So there's all these little reminders that you aren't quite in a fantasy world, but you aren't in sci-fi either. She gets the whip sword out, goes to the front door. Everybody engages these crabs. We have a pitched battle. Fehu's hard suit loses its missile box arm right as it's reloading. Crab snatches that off too, and also does damage to the core. This hard suit's almost destroyed. First session. And I can see it in my players' eyes. Are just like, I thought we were just going to like have our hard suits forever. No. You know how in video games where you get like all the powers and all the loot at the beginning, and then you like lose almost everything, and then you get the opening credits? That's kind of what hard suit's like. So they managed to defeat these two crabs by hook and by crook. And right as the last crab falls, and they all get that moment of going like, okay, that's ICRPG combat. End of session. So that moment when silence and quiet comes back to a scene after all this chaos, I didn't even really let them talk about it. We'd been sort of playing from 7 to 11, so a somewhat short session for our standards, but I always believe that a first session should be a little shorter, like ease people into it. Next session, we can do our more normal, which is 5, maybe 6 hours, is much more normal with 2 or 3 breaks. That's the first session. So what have they learned? We have Cypher, our female player. She has an almost vampire-like persona. And in the world of Hardsuit, they don't really know this yet, but there are these beings called the Everlasting who are over 300 years old. She's one of them. And this part of their conversation with Mord was realizing that maybe all of the Everlasting aren't evil because she's one and she's part of this group. What could this mean? We don't know. Then we have Awake. I am awake, he says at the beginning of every turn. He is this calm-based character, definitely heading down some kind of monk or priest route. Then we have Warag, who's our big dude, who also has a lot of charisma, a lot of gumption, and doesn't hesitate to yell orders to the group and welcome orders. They follow these orders. Their leadership is great. Then we have Quark, who's our boy genius, who's also sort of our most gifted hardsuit pilot. And then we have Fehu, who is sort of taking on almost like a bodyguard or substitute parent role for Quark, and who's also definitely like a hardsuit pilot, sort of in his mind. So since this session, it's only been a couple days, but already I think all of my players met up in the bar. I think they did it last night and all had like an after discussion. And they're sort of brewing exactly who they are and how this all came together. And I'm not going to spoil it right here because I want to let it continue to gel. And so you're going to have to wait for session 2 to see exactly where this goes. We're going to be playing bi-weekly here at the beginning. And as we get a little more of a groove, people's schedules seems to be changing a lot right now. Then we'll probably do some weekly rhythm later toward the beginning of the summer and stuff. And we'll just see how it goes. So I would expect at minimum a dozen sessions here, but probably about 20 for this game to go before we're going to have to go back to season 2 of Dirty Jobs, but we'll see. So that is session 1. It really had sort of 3 acts. It had the awakening and the shipwreck. It had the cabin and the conversation, and it had this battle with the crabs. And that kind of rhythm to me almost always works in a session. A sort of 3-piece rhythm, even if the session is quite a bit longer. It's just a structure that just works. And sometimes it kind of goes like this in intensity, but you just never know. Sometimes it kind of goes like that. Or, this is a really good format too, if the middle act is the most intense one, because people can get tired in a really long session. But that was it. That was session 1 of Hardsuit. And so if you're part of the Runehammer Discord or Patreon, you'll be seeing little reveals about this here and there. If you follow me on Twitter too, today I revealed our first miniatures. So there are going to be posable, modular, interchangeable Hardsuit miniatures with this game release. And so we are building those right now. We got our first 3D print test today. Props out to my modeler, Atuno. Thanks, man. Doing great. And it's going to be dope. It's going to be dope. So we kind of are getting a visual sense too for the players. So, or the characters, I should say. So I'm going to do some art for those characters, and then we'll use that art to try to find miniatures. We'll get the miniatures ordered and get them painted, and we'll really get some wheels on this bad boy, and get some photos going of our game sessions and all the normal stuff that you expect from Runehammer here on YouTube. Like my purpose on YouTube has really become just the telling of what we do. And I think that there is a lot of intrinsic what works and what didn't for us as part of the stories that I like to tell here on YouTube. It isn't necessarily just advice. It's kind of things we did and things we didn't. And there's some things that I did not as good as I wanted to in this session. I wanted to use this new dice degradation thing that I designed, a new mechanical thing that I did with the guidance of Orc Call on the Discord channel. Thank you for your brilliant idea. Didn't really get it to the table, though. I kind of floundered on that front. And I think I may have revealed a bit too much, because when they got to Mord's heartstrings, I feel like maybe I gave up a little too much, but I was role-playing in the moment, so who knows? And I think I may have hit the players with a few too many aspects of ICRPG at once, but like 3 of them had read most of the book, so I feel comfortable with that. It was a really fun session regardless, and we kind of all got out of there feeling pretty fresh. 7 to 11 is, not something to wear you out, especially when you have like stew in the middle of the session, like you have a food break. So good times had by all. A great first session. I know this group is going to get along really well. They really have a lot of emotional connection to each other, which I know is pure magic. Now, if you guys want to throw some questions at me, put question in all caps before your jam there, and I'll try to get to a few before I roll on. It's real sunny out today. Finally today. Feels like spring is here, so it's time to get the motorcycle out and go live the season of thunder a little bit. It's also the last day of this semester of school, so no more getting up early, at least for a week. So spring break is here. So today is a great freaking day to be alive. So yeah, hit me with a few questions. We can hang out for a second. John, improve narration. Spontaneous stuff is hit and miss. Well, how do you improve it? Narration, I assume you mean like description. There's not a lot of narrating necessarily that happens, but there's a lot of description. I mean, how do you improve it? Just do it. Just do more of it. I can't tell you some kind of, because just like how you say written text is artificial, me telling you ways to speak that are more effective is a little bit artificial. So I just say, just lean into it. And like letting go of hesitation and inhibition is a huge part of it. So you guys can see how excited I get when I retell these stories. If you can get that excitement going, that will overcome any shortcomings you might have in description. Are there usual caps of abilities and effort and so on in this kind of character? I don't know what usual caps are, but yeah, I mean, you want it to be within reason. You don't want to make superheroes in one session. That would be really not fun. So there are rules provided in the hard suit book about guidelines of how much might be the right amount. But of course, your table's always going to know best. Gamer Affair, you can find more information about hard suit on my Patreon. Since it's not released yet and it's still being created, only my patrons really get a close-up look at the creation process. Am I a teacher? I guess in some way. I mean, Colin, maybe this is my profession, what you're looking at right now. All this here. Norns, what up, yo? Man, you guys, if you hadn't seen Norn's ICRPG collection, it's through the roof. Do you think the style of character creation could apply well? I really do, Norns. I really do. I think it's brilliant. I think getting out of the old rut of looking at the rules and looking at the options and I'm going to make a character, it's not necessarily a rut because that's still fun. I want to be clear about that. But this is really fun. There's a real negotiation. There's a lot of eye contact with this, and I love eye contact at the table. I am not a fair weather rider, but thanks for the dig. Okay, I've looked through your videos and vlogs for info on how you adjudicate destroying player equipment. Yeah. Well, player equipment is destroyed and stolen when it fits the narrative. When players are submerged in water, when they're falling, when they flee from a fire, when they run from a campsite, when they're attacked by thieving monsters, when they're attacked by corrosive monsters. There's all kinds of situations that logically make you think, yeah, I would probably not know where my pocket knife is, or my pants got ruined. In those events, randomly choose an item to be lost or destroyed. I mean, exact adjudication only you are going to know, but I think let logic take loot away. We all live real lives out here in the world, and we know that things come and go in our lives. The thought of like getting a pair of jeans and having them for the rest of your life is not real, yo. You tear your pants. How expansive will hard suit models be? Ideally, you said a little bit of, I'm not sure what you mean about expansive, but enough to make some variations. How does one get started self-publishing? Well, do everything, Carbonated Blood. Do everything. Give yourself a public voice. Do the hobby. Reveal the doing of the hobby to the world. Find like-minded individuals. Write and publish things, and just do the hobby. Do what you're good at, and be public about it. And when you feel you've reached a point of quality and community and momentum, then yeah, get into publishing. I think getting into or starting off is the place that it's really good to just be completely humble and just be a fan of what you do and have fun. Do not worry about scale and publishing and even the term OSR or a scene or anything like that. Just be you. You'll know when you being you has so much momentum and so much energy being put into it that it needs to become more. But start at the doing, not at the achieving and the dreaming. What kind of big would you sell Runehammer to WotC? Gosh. No, absolutely freaking not. What kind of big baddies are you excited to throw at the hard suits? Well, I don't want to do a spoiler. Again, we try to keep these sessions surprising for you guys as well as my players. Scott. Oh, hey, Scott, what's up? That will remain to be revealed. This is not a normal fantasy world. It's not a sci-fi world. So the creatures and monsters we're going to be encountering, I hope, turn out to be quite interesting. Do you foresee yourself attending a con? Yeah, absolutely. I don't go to the big ones. I like to go to the small ones. On that note, you definitely want to meet me at Jeff Con in Charlotte, North Carolina this November. And I'm trying to get all the Runehammerians together for that con. If you want to come to one con to game with the Runehammer community, excuse me, that's the one. Jeff Con in Charlotte, November 11th, I believe. But yeah, I don't like the big cons really at all. I like little cons. I've an inexperienced player that was confused. How do you win this game? You don't. It's about story. Advice? I don't know. I'm not sure what to say. I mean, good answer, I guess. Who says things like, "How do you win this game"? What, who says that? I guess I probably would have answered by being awesome. That's probably what I would have said. Yeah, Joel. Thanks. Yeah, start at the doing. Just be you. Do the hobby that you do, and the answers will just come by the being of yourself. Yeah, I did a Vecna DM screen. Yeah. I can't seem to find the final product. Well, it was a commissioned product, so it's not released or anything like that. I could ask my client if that should be released, but I'm also not a huge believer in using DM screens, so I don't really publish them. Seems a little bit odd for me to say like, don't use a DM screen and then like, here's a really cool one. That's a little strange. Daniel, paperback master editions are totally a steal. Yeah, aren't they cheap? It's crazy. I was waiting for my game store to get. Yeah. So, availability on the books by Modifius has proven to be challenging. Obviously, we have some world situations involving shipping. We have some costs going up globally because of world chaos. But also, frankly, I am a very small creator on the scale of a publisher like Modifius, and so it's not like they're going to make 100,000 copies of Index Card RPG, and there's 100 copies in every bookstore. So since my books sold out so quickly, it has been challenging restocking them. Because remember, this is offset printing. It takes several weeks just to print a block of these books, and then several more weeks to get them into shipping containers and move them around the world and stuff. So it proved really quite logistically difficult, um, going the path of these super high quality books with Modifius. Now, don't get me wrong, because the books are super choice. I really like them. They are so quality. But I really just want to get people at the table. And that's why I'm like not looking into now much quicker and more affordable ways for people to get my books. So yeah, it can be hard, even with your local game store. All they can do is ask their distributor. I just wanted to see the finished DM screen. I did post the entire finished DM screen on my Twitter like 2 weeks ago. Any plans to do a horror RPG? Not right now, no. Hey, there we go. I think I'm caught up. Great. Oh, Friday, here I come. I'm rolling in hot. So that was session one. And yeah, Mono, I agree. Collector's edition is really is the one thing that working with Modifius like was a slam dunk. The quality of the collector's edition fits the cost and the rarity. And they all kind of come together to make a really, really sort of prize-worthy book. And that has been a great experience with them. Also, Chris at Modifius is a great guy to work with. So that part has been really fun. I think it's just the logistical element is tough when you're small like me compared to print on demand where I can just get people books right away all the time reliably and more affordably. I felt a bit like an imposter. There are people out there playing 2D20 for years, and I have dabbled in it. And I was like, "Ooh, yeah, I think see a way to streamline this." And I just started feeling like, maybe I'm kind of losing what makes it magical. And then I started coming back to ICRPG. I was like, "Oh my god, I know this system so well." The weather is good. I live in Philly. It's always sunny here, but we do have some crazy storms in the springtime. And today there are no storms. Like yesterday was crazy town. First half of the day, really nice. And then like savage storm, just like sent all the trash down the streets. We call them Philadelphia tumbleweeds here when you just see trash rolling down the street in a storm. But not today. Not today. Today is nice. And I'm going to get out in it, if you know what I mean. So that's it, guys. Thanks for tuning in once again here on Runehammer. You can always come here on Friday afternoon for a live stream, be talking about recapping sessions. I will be out next week. I'm going to take a week off for spring break, and then we got session 2 coming up. So catch up with me in a couple weeks, and after that, we'll get back to weekly as I've got some craft projects coming up and all kinds of stuff like that. Okay, so y'all, thank you for tuning in. Have a great weekend, and you know how we do it around here at Runehammer. This weekend, find some way to do one little nice thing for somebody. Buy somebody a beer, get them a croissant. Make your bed, clean up your kitchen, do the dishes, whatever. Some little thing to make somebody's life just a little bit more better. We all do that. It goes all the way around the horn, and it's just going to be a better world. All right. I'm going to get out of here. Thanks, you guys. Keep it real. Don't steal. You're always going to get a deal, and may your dice roll high. Until next time. Book, 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 book. Phone book. Yep, 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 yep. Phone book. Phone book. Yep, 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 yep.